Do not believe Israeli officials. Israeli officials are not going to admit that they are committing war crimes. Israeli officials are not going to admit that they're intentionally targeting journalists, ambulances, children, entire residential buildings. Do not believe them, and do not believe the reporters who tell you to believe them. Believe what you see, and what we see is very clear. The asymmetry of power is clear. The scale of devastation in the Gaza Strip is so stark, it cannot be denied or debated.
هل تذكرون هذه الفتاة؟ انتشرت صورها كالنار في الهشيم في الإعلام الغربي الذي نقل عن الإعلام الإسرائيلي زعمه أنها اغتصبت وقتلت، لتخرج والدة الفتاة بعدها وتؤكد أن ابنتها لم تغتصب ولم تقتل.
Die Mutter von der entführten Shani log. Wir haben jetzt weitere Informationen, dass Shani am Leben ist.
يشن الاحتلال الإسرائيلي غارة موازية من المزاعم والأكاذيب في وسائل الإعلام العالمية.
They took dozens of children, bound them up, burned them, and executed them.
وذلك من أجل تبرير اعتداءاته الوحشية على الشعب الفلسطيني. يسمى هذا بالهسبرة، وهي سلاح تستخدمه إسرائيل في هذه الحرب بهدف نزع إنسانية الفلسطينيين لتمرير سياساتها وتبرير جرائمها.
نحن نلخمين بخيوط أدم ونحن نواجين بيتم.
بثت وسائل إعلام عالمية تقارير تحدثت فيها عن مجازر ارتكبتها حماس في مستوطنة كفار عزة خلال عملية طوفان الأقصى التي بدأت السبت الماضي، ولكنها لم تعرض أي صور أو مقاطع فيديو للأطفال الذين تحدثت عنهم، ولم تظهر أي جثث لهم في المقاطع المتداولة. حتى بايدن وقع في الخطأ.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
واتهم كتائب القسام بقتل الأطفال، قبل أن يتراجع البيت الأبيض ويقدم عدد من الصحفيين ممن نشروا الخبر على حذف تغريداتهم دون توضيح للسبب. فلماذا لا يصدق العالم إلا الرواية الإسرائيلية؟
Simply put, the Israelis are the world's allies. And when we talk about the world, we're not talking about every single individual ever. We're talking about Western nations, predominantly superpowers, who have mutual interests in the region, in the Middle East, who have strategic allyships with the Israeli regime. So the belief in the Israeli narrative is not born out of, mourning all civilians' life lost, as they have claimed, or withholding international law, or any of those myths, I would argue. Rather, these are their friends. These are the people they go to dinner with, and these are the people they share a strategic goal with. So it is in their best interest to go along with the Israeli narrative, because ultimately, for the United States, for example, to serve its colonial offshoot, for the UK to serve its colonial offshoot, they would ultimately be serving themselves as colonial entities, as imperialist entities. This is one reason. Another reason is that Palestinians have been racialized largely, despite not all being Muslim, but we have been racialized largely as Muslims. And if we look at the majority of the death toll in recent massive wars around the world, the majority of that death toll has been largely Muslims. And the ability of the Israeli PR machine, and also the US and the UK PR machine, to utilize Islamophobia and Islamophobic tropes to justify the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people, to usher in the genocide of the Palestinian people, is alarming. It's absolutely terrifying, and it needs to be looked at critically. For example, we've had just today a CNN reporter, I hesitate to even call her a reporter, a CNN talking head, walk back and apologize for having stated with a lot of sadness that Hamas, quote unquote, has beheaded 40 Israeli babies. Now she is saying she cannot confirm it. But this is not just journalistic malpractice. This is her having blood on her hands. And we have seen this on and on again with multiple journalists stating ridiculous statements that reek of Islamophobia, that build on this narrative that Hamas can be synonymized with ISIS, to preemptively justify in the viewer's mind the genocide of the Palestinian people. And when I say the viewer's mind, I am talking about a large population of English speakers who are already biased against Islam, who are already biased against Muslims.
So how can they actually avoid these false news and not fall into the trap of the Israeli propaganda?
Obviously, we're not foolish. We look at the world around us and we see that any accusation of anti-Semitism is warranted all the time of day. It's warranted criminalization. It's warranted being fired from your job, being expelled from your school. And yet most of this Islamophobia goes unchecked. And not only does it go unchecked, but it is being enlisted to serve the Israeli colonial enterprise, and even more immediately, the Israeli genocidal project in the besieged Gaza Strip. This is the Iraq war all over again. This is the quote-unquote war on terror all over again. And the media has the bloodiest hands of them all.